Hello friends, welcome back to our channel. So today we are going to start a new concept in Python, which is a framework, that is a Django or Django. So some will be calling it as Django or some will be calling it as a Django, right? So from today we are going to start Python Django framework. So here it is called as a framework. Now, first we have to see what is this framework. So, framework means the application will be developed with the components which are already available, right? So, work with components. Okay? So, this Django will be an example for this framework which will be used in Python. So, this we call it as Python framework. So why we are using this Python framework Django? So this Python Django is used for creating web applications or websites. In order to create the websites, so we know that a website is a collection of pages, web pages. So in order to create those web pages using Python, we have to use this Django framework. So by using this Django framework, the web pages will be easily created, right? So this Django framework is a web based server side backend technology or scripting, backend scripting. You can call it as a backend scripting. Okay, this is a scripting language or scripting framework which is used for a backend and on server side. So web-based server side backend scripting framework is a Django. Right? Now we'll see in depth. So this will be following the MVT structure or a design pattern. MVT structure. So what is this MVT structure? How the Django will be implemented, right? So in this session, we'll see the complete introductory part of this Django, and then in the next session, we have to set up the environment in order to execute the Django web pages. Okay, in order to create the web pages using this framework, right? Now it follows the MVT structure. What is this MVT? So M stands for a model, V stands for a view, and T stands for template. So this Django framework will be using this MVT design pattern, model, view, and template design pattern, right? So model means it mainly focuses on the data which has to be presented, right? So focuses on data, usually where the data will be available. So we know that the data will be available in the database, and we are supposed to retrieve the data from the database, and that will be done with the help of SQL statements, right? So SQL is a structured query language which is used to retrieve the data from the database. So this model focuses on the data which is available in the database. So we have to retrieve the data from the database. So that's why we are saying it as a backend scripting. Backend means a database. And a view. So view means it mainly focus on the model. Okay, which model should be used and what type of data should be used. Okay, so it mainly focus on relevant model based upon the user request. So user will be requesting and based upon the user request, it will decide the relevant model and the data. So both it will be deciding, right? So based upon the user request. And template, we know the template means the layout. Okay, the layout which will be having or which will be created with the help of HTML tags and Django tags. So this will be how data is represented. How data is represented. How the data is represented. So mainly the template focus on how data is represented. Model means focus on data which to be represented, and view means so it focus on the what is the relevant model and the what is the data we have to retrieve according to the user request. Now we'll see one by one. Okay, so first model. Okay, model. So just now we have seen a model means it focus on data to be represented. So what type of data, what data we have to be represented. And here we use ORM, which stands for object relation mapping. Okay, and this particular ORM will be used to reduce the complex SQL statements for retrieving the data. So what we are saying, model means getting the data, focusing on the data what to be represented. Okay, so ORM means it uses this ORM to simplify the retrieval using SQL statements. So it will also simplify the SQL statements so to retrieve the data from the database. And usually this model, so there will be a lot of models and the relevant model will be retrieved and that will be available in, it will be available in model.py. So this is also a file, Python file, right? Python file, model.py. So in this model.py, there will be a lot of models based upon the user request, the relevant model and the data will be retrieved. And the second one, it's a view. So it is based upon the what we are saying, it will retrieve the relevant model and the data, okay, based upon the user request. So we can call it as a request handler, right? So it is a request handler. Request handler. Okay. To get the relevant model and data as per user request. Based upon the user request, it will get the relevant model and the data. And usually these views here, the views will also be more. So it will be available in views.py. So one more file, that is a Python file, views.py. Okay, so views.py, whenever the user requests for a data, okay, so it will search in this particular views.py, it will retrieve the view and from that view it will select the relevant model and data. And then the last one, which is template. So template means it's a layout to represent the data. Okay, the layout which is to represent the data, and this will be available in templates folder. Okay, this is not a file. Okay, it's a templates folder. So there will be a folder called templates, and in that templates folder we'll be having a different layouts. Okay, And see, there is a one more thing called URL. In order to, we know that website means a collection of web pages, and there should be a navigation from one web page to another web page, and that will be done with the help of URLs. So there is a one more term called URLs. So Django uses these URLs. So it is used by user to navigate. Navigate means moving from one web page to another web page. Navigate among different web pages. Different web pages. So usually this will be available in urls.py. So this is one more file. Okay. So in order to create the web page using this Django framework, it requires urls.py in order to navigate from one page to another page. It requires a model.py in order to give the relevant model and the data, and views.py in order to select the model and the data, and the template, which is a layout to represent the data. So all these things should be there in order to execute one web page or create one web page. So where we can get all these things: urls.py, model.py, views.py, and the templates folder. So all these things will be available while we set up the environment. So for this purpose, we have to set up the environment. Then it will display all these files automatically. So urls.py, model.py, views.py, templates, everything will be set right. Then we can start creating the web pages. Okay, so I'll write a step by step what happens. Then you can understand more, right? What happens? Step 1. What is the step 1? So user request with the help of URLs. User requests web page using URLs. So the next step 2. What happens? The URL will be selecting the view which matches with the URL, right? So view will be selected that matches with URL requested by user. Okay. User. Next, after getting this view, what happens? So view selects the model to get the data. That means the model will itself gives the data to be represented. So that will be done by the view. Step 4. Okay. So view sends the data. After retrieving the data from the model, it will send the data to the template. Template to represent. Next. So the final data with a HTML content will be displayed on web page, on web browser. So final data with HTML content will be displayed on the web browser. So this is the process which happens. Okay, so first a user requests the web page using the URLs. Immediately the view will be selected that matches with the URL requested by the user. And once the view is selected, now view selects the model from the models.py to get the data. Okay, and view also sends the data which is required from the, which it gets from the model to the template to represent it. And finally, the data with the HTML content will be displayed on the web browser. So this is what happened if you execute the web page. So we need to set up the environment in order to get the different files in order to execute a web page. That means urls.py, model.py, view.py, and the templates folder. Okay, so simply we can write here. So first URL. So URL will be selecting the view which matches with that URL, and from this it will select the model, and also it will send the data to the template. So this is what happened in the Django framework. In order to execute or in order to create a web page. Right? So the main features of this Django is it's a secure. So why we are giving this secure? So there are a lot of some web-based hacking process will be done. So like cross-site scripting will be there. Okay, so all of the Django framework will secure the user accounts as well as the passwords. So from such type of attacks, web-based attacks. Okay, cross-site scripting, right? So all these kind of attacks, it will secure the user accounts. And also open source. We know that the name open source. So as the name itself indicates, the open source means it will be available with a free of cost in the internet, so we can download and we can install it in our system, and we can also execute or we can create the web pages or websites with a free of cost. It will be available open in the internet. And similarly, scalable. And this particular Django framework will be useful in order to switch from small applications to the large applications in a easy manner, in a very easy manner. Okay, and fast development. As we say that this Django is a framework which will be having a lot of components, already available components. So we are making use of those components in order to create the web pages. So automatically that will be the fast development. So using this Django framework, the web pages can be developed in a rapid way. It's a fast. Right? So this is all about the introduction to Django framework. One thing just remember, Django framework is used for creating the websites. Okay, so in order to create a website, we have to create a web pages. In order to create the web pages, it requires or it follows the MVT design pattern, model view template. So these are the steps it will follow while creating and executing the web pages. And these are the features: secure, open source, scalable, and fast development, rapid development. Right? So I'll stop here. In our next session, we'll see how to set up the environment in order to create and execute the web pages. So setting up of the Django framework is most important. So without setting up this environment, you can't execute the web pages. So we require, as we discussed it just now, we require some files, okay, in order to execute and process the web page. So in order to get those files, we have to set up the environment. So in our next session, we'll see how can we set up the environment and how can we make a Django framework ready for creating and executing the web pages. Right? So I'll stop here and hope you enjoyed the session. And if you really enjoyed the session, like my session, share my session with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.